but they are also the fastest of all land animals. But I'll get to that a bit later. Um, Cheetahs live on the plains of sub-Saharan Africa and even in the Kalahari Desert. Of course, like all cats, they're usually solitary with the exceptions of mothers and their cubs, but male cheetahs will quite often group together and they can usually be a band of brothers because cheetahs are lightweight animals, so they don't have the strength of a lion to bring down a zebra. But male cheetahs, when they work together, they can bring down larger prey like a zebra or a wildebeest. And they can, because they don't form prides like a lion's. Instead, they will usually form a small group of usually two to three males. But the largest group ever recorded was 5 male cheetahs in Kenya in East Africa. I said about cheetahs as being solitary with the exceptions of mothers and their cubs, because cheetahs can usually have about 3 to 5 cubs in 1 year. And of course, it's the mother's job to provide them with food as well as teach them how to hunt. But she also needs to protect them from predators like lions, hyenas, wild dogs and baboons. Of course, unfortunately, about 75% of cheetah cubs don't make it to their first year. You're all probably wondering how a cheetah hunts. Well, cheetahs have a very advanced field of vision. In fact, they probably have the best vision of any cat because they have a layer of cells at the back of their eyes that can enhance their vision, and they can spot a gazelle from over a kilometre away. And what the cheetah then has to do is it has to creep through long grass to get to within no more than about 30 metres of its mark, and then it will attack. Of course, that's when it uses its secret weapon, speed. Cheetahs have been clocked going from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 3 seconds, so they outpace a sports car like a Porsche or a Lamborghini. But you're all probably wondering how they get so fast. Well, it's all down to the fact that they have a small head with short ears to reduce drag, and they also have loose shoulder and hip joints and a very flexible spine that bends and curves almost like a bow. And of course, at their top speed, they can reach about 75 miles per hour. And of course, they spend much of their time completely airborne. And of course, unlike other big cats that can retract their claws into their toes, on a cheetah, the claws are always descended, and that can help extended, and that can help them grip the ground and push them forward. And of course, they can also use it to whack at its prey's legs. So if they manage to knock a gazelle off balance or slash at its tendons, it will knock it off balance, and then the cheetah can finish it off with a quick bite to the throat and suffocate it. In fact, about 50% of cheetah hunts end in success, which makes them some of the most accomplished killers of all the big cats. But there is a price to pay for the speed, because as the cheetah runs, a lot of the glycogen that gives it the energy to run fast creates lactic acid, which can cause cause muscle cramp. And if the chase isn't over within over 300 metres or so, the cheetah needs to stop before its body overheats. And it could then spend about half an hour or so burning off all that excess body heat. But another disadvantage with being fast means that the cheetah is a lightweight, so it can't defend itself against tougher animals like lions or even hyenas. So quite often, when food is scarce, the cheetah will often lose out. Its specialty of running fast can sometimes be its biggest weakness. Of course, unfortunately, the sad reality of the population of cheetahs is that they are minuscule now in comparison to the past, as they've been overhunted with poachers to killing them for their fur, but also their cubs are stolen from the wild to be sold as exotic pets to disreputable zoos or to a rich man's private collection. And of course, their habitat is being destroyed and quite often replaced by farmland, where the cheetahs are considered a threat to livestock and shot. And if this carries on, then in the next 50 years or so, the cheetah could become extinct in the wild. But there is hope with building breeding populations in captivity and also working with local people to teach them that they can coexist with cheetahs, as well as bringing in full punishable laws that if you are caught harming a cheetah, you go to prison for a very long time. Because this is much of the cheetah's range. And now the next animal I'm going to show you is probably Africa's least known predator. It is the African hunting dog. Now, African hunting dogs are probably the least known of Africa's predators. I mean, they may not look as fierce as lions, but what they lack in strength, they make up for in teamwork and stamina. These dogs live and hunt in packs that can be more than 30 animals strong. In fact, I think the biggest pack ever recorded was 50 individuals. Of course, like all members of the dog family, they have an acute sense of smell, which is 1,000 times more powerful than humans, but also those large ears can help them detect their prey, as well as lose heat or lose a fair bit of body heat in the African sun. And of course, African hunting dogs are actually probably the most successful predators on the planet. In fact, when they hunt, they're successful in about 85% of their hunts. So they're a lot more successful than any of the big cats. But even so, that doesn't mean they are completely invulnerable. But I will get to that bit later. Of course, African hunting dogs, they feed on a wide range of prey, from small antelope like gazelle and impala, through to wildebeest, zebra, and pretty much anything they can catch. But of course, their favourite prey of all are impala. Of course, impala are intelligent and very alert. So the only way the dogs can catch them is by working together as a team. Of course, once they've spotted their prey, they will creep as close as they can. And of course, their fur is their camouflaged fur, which also gives them the name painted dogs, keeps them disguised, because impala can only see in black and white, but they do hear very well. So the dogs also have to be stealthy too. And then, once they see their prey, they will all charge forward after their prey. But, unlike lions that are hoping to pounce on their victims, the dogs aren't looking for that. In fact, they're happy for their prey to run. Of course, when the hunt begins, some dogs will run to the side of the herd, while others start the chase from behind. The dogs on the side are called flankers. Their job is to cut off any escape routes. Of course, the Impala's first line of defence is to stick closely together. But the dogs have the advantage of teamwork, and if they separate one from the herd, then a small group of flankers, along with the lead dog, will break off to zero in on their target. And while Impala have speed, the dogs also have another tactic, stamina. So they can run for miles and miles and miles in the blistering hot African sun without tiring quickly. And of course, once their prey is completely exhausted, the whole pack pile in and finish it off with a killer dog bite. A pack like this kills about once a day and everything is shared. Of course, while these animals may be Africa's most successful predator, they're also probably the most threatened of all, because African hunting dogs are now among the rarest of Africa's mammals. But they've been hunted for their fur, but also because of human-wildlife conflict, with ranchers blaming them for livestock predation. But also, like all members of the dog family, the African hunting dog is also vulnerable to the rabies disease, and it's actually believed that that's wiped out about 65% of the African hunting dog population in the last few decades. And of course, with their habitat disappearing, it means they're coming into closer contact with larger predators like lions and hyenas, who often steal their kills. Of course, while these dogs' populations are diminishing across Africa, there is hope, because conservationists are working to stop the spread of rabies to the hunting dogs, but also moving to stop ranchers from killing the dogs by either teaching them to coexist with them or bringing in hefty punishments. But also, breeding populations in captivity is another way we can help protect these animals. And probably the best place in Africa to see them is the Okavango Delta in southern Africa. Of course, this is their historic range in Africa. In fact, here is one of their strongholds, the Okavango Delta in Botswana. And of course, slowly populations of African hunting dogs are starting to build back up, but there's still a way to go. Now, the next animal I'm going to show you all is the largest primate in the world, and one of our closest relatives. It is the mountain gorilla. Now, mountain gorillas are the largest primates in the world. In fact, while a fully grown male, a silverback, here would probably be no taller than me, he would be at least 2 times my weight and a lot more muscular. But gorillas are herbivores, which means they're animals that feed on plant matter, and they're only aggressive when they're defending themselves, or more importantly, their family. Mountain gorillas are found in the cloud forests of Rwanda, Uganda, and the Congo. In fact, it was just over 100 years ago that the first outsiders came to the mountain forests of Central Africa. And they saw mountain gorillas for the first time. And of course, they brought back stories of these terrifying beasts that were incredibly strong and could rip a man apart with their bare hands. That is, of course, what inspired the stories of Tarzan and King Kong. Of course, We've learned a lot more about mountain gorillas since then. We know they're actually peaceful herbivores and not aggressive unless their families are threatened.